Joining me now is Mr. Joel Karanja, who is the chairperson of Digital Broadcasters Association.
Thank you.
Are your members the promoters of this addiction?
I won't put it in those words.
Yes.
Because those are very sad stories. But as it is well known, media amplifies, because when we talk about advertising, you package content to sell it to the masses. And one of the power that we have as media is the ability to be able to reach more people and also persuade through advertising. And I think maybe this suspicion has come in at the right time so that we can have a conversation as stakeholders, what intervention needs to be done. So I won't say our members are promoters, but I know they are part and parcel of the ecosystem where gambling, betting, and lotteries are taking place, either directly participating or by virtue of giving the platform to the companies which have been licensed to run these games to be able to advertise and attract more players into the industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Terence, you sit at Media Council of Kenya as their manager in charge of regulatory affairs. When you listen to the stories that we've listened to in the first half of this conversation, what runs into your mind?
Indeed, it's a very sad state of affairs. It's actually something that the Media Council had picked up way back in 2021, because in 2021, the Media Council had established a working committee to look at betting in the media and some of the challenges that have been mentioned when it comes to exploitative betting. Maybe just to go back to one of the questions you had asked, for example, why doesn't the government ban betting as opposed to suspending it? You'll realize that actually in Kenya there's legislation that deals with issues of betting and gaming. That's the Betting, Lotteries and Gaming Act. So there's a whole legislation in place in the country to ensure that this betting is done within some parameters. So ideally what that tells you is that betting is not illegal, but it should be done within some parameters, and there are legislations that are then put in place to ensure that this betting is done according to those parameters that are set by those laws. Now, the unfortunate thing is you'll find that probably the betting that is ongoing, you'll find that there are some aspects of this legislation that are not adhered to. Betting on the media specifically is cuts across various regulators. You have BCLB, who issues the license. You have CA, that's Communication Authority, who were in charge of the programming code, which again made some prescriptions when it comes to betting on the media platforms. Then you have your Media Council of Kenya, which is in charge of media ethical conduct and ensuring that the content that is disseminated adheres to some set standards. So you see, this issue of betting cuts across various legislation. And the issue was, and it even came out when the task force was sitting, was that because it cuts across this various legislation, when it comes to enforcement, how then is enforcement done? Because it's cutting across. And because it's cutting across, then there are gaps that emerge that then people are able to exploit, and you see it's the members of the public who end up suffering. I think with that said, you'll notice that also what came out was that betting initially in the media started as issues mainly to do with advertisements and promotions. And the media, as my colleague Joel has said, would be used as a platform to amplify and reach more people. But I think at some point it became a source of income to the media house. So you now find there are media houses that are not actually advertising, but running their own
Adverts.
Gaming promotions, right? Because they're not advertising anyone else, they are running their own gaming promotions. And that also became a challenge, because even some of the complaints we received as Media Council, some of them related to, I was asked to send money, and once I sent this money, I was informed I'd won, but when the show was over and I called the station, there's no money for me to receive. So you see, that becomes misleading,
Yes.
Which is against the code. And also something I'll say about the regulatory framework. when it comes to the issues of betting. One, you understand that all people who participate in betting need to be licensed. And you need to inform the public that we are running a betting promotion and this is the license number. It's not done. You'll find you're not supposed to be misled, but you'll find that is what is happening. So I think the challenge has been enforcement. You have laws that talk about something called the watershed period.
Yes.
Because gaming programs are mainly meant for adult content. But as you have said, at 6 a.m., when you wake up, when children are watching, people are encouraged to do so. We have had stories of people, even children now pushing their parents, Mom, pia wewe eka, so that you get something. So the issue we have is the issue of the watershed period and classification. Because all these betting advertisements and shows which are being run ideally need to be classified. So once they are classified, you'll know that this content is aimed for mature audiences. So the first thing is it can only run from 10 to 5 a.m. But that's not the case because they're not classified. And they are still running. So that's a key issue that needs to be addressed.
Mr. Joel, in terms of revenue to the media houses, is betting the only way media can remain afloat? Since the suspension, they are fighting to have this back, yet we have lives that are affected.
One of the ways to remain afloat is advertisement. That has worked over the years. And you'll find the gaming and the betting companies among the big spenders when it comes to advertisement. Now, media is part of the ecosystem, and so if all the other sources of revenue are going down, but there's one which is still strong, you'll find maybe it's outstanding in terms of sustaining media. And looking back, I think we had a similar conversation, and that's why we need to go beyond just being reactionary. In the days of Matiang'i at the CS Interior, there's a time a similar suspension took place, even licenses for some of the companies that were big in betting. I will not want to mention them here. And after a period, it was reinstated. And that is where now we are. Now, BCLB has issued the suspension, which I don't believe is the cure. The conversation needs to go deeper. And if you look at the current programming code from the Communication Authority, the current edition reintroduced before media was not allowed, especially broadcast media, to advertise gaming or betting or lotteries during the watershed period. But out of realization of the impact of the ban that came during the days of Matiang'i and the effect that it had on media, they had to rethink again. And that's why I'm saying we need to stop being reactionary. Out of the realization that this is part of the sustenance of media, and in a lot of conversation we are talking about, even with the regulators, sustainability of media, they had to introduce but restricted, whereby currently you are only allowed within a span of 1 hour, you can only advertise on air for adverts that has to do with gaming. And the restrictions goes further. You cannot even advertise after. Let's say there was a children's show 5 minutes after. You cannot advertise. The purpose is to protect the children. Because like Minishi has said, it is expected once you are 18, you are mature and responsible enough to be able to understand and make the right decision. But from the stories that we have had, one of the things that picked those sad stories where someone was almost losing their lives out of the effect and the impact of gaming. One of the things that has come out from Steve and Miriam is both of them, they did not see or they were not introduced or influenced to go into betting or gambling through media. It's through friends. Now, friends we have everywhere. That's why I'm saying is a deeper societal issue that we need to address, not just by suspending the advert, because it's just amplifying what the society is looking at. And I can tell you how media works. If I put a show today and there's no viewership, tomorrow you not put on air. I know Crosstalk has been here for many years.
Yes.
The reason why you have sustained it is because it has impact and it has results. So if the society was not attracted by these adverts and promotions, it will not be on air today, because even the gaming companies would have stopped. So we need to go back and see how we can be able to address the issue beyond just the regulation.
Okay. We've talked about content and we'll be coming back to it, because we've seen where gambling and betting advertisements changing into content. It's not just a 30 seconds thing, but you have a full 1 hour, 30 minutes show just on betting. So we'll come back to that. But Minishi, in terms of responsibility, social responsibility, we have journalists that are accredited by Media Council of Kenya. They go on air to push this, and they push it to their last breath. But also a media that needs to have a social responsibility towards the public that they serve. So how do you then draw the line as a regulator, where one side you are saying, I care about people so much as a media house, but at the same time, be the champion of addiction?
Now, I think to answer that question, we look at it from two fronts. Now, the first front is the ethical aspect that you're talking about. And when it comes to ethical aspects, when it comes to journalists, media practitioners, and media enterprises, you have your code of conduct, which is provided under Schedule 2 of the Media Council Act. That code of conduct provides ethical principles that need to be adhered to when disseminating to the public. And in relation to this, that's where the issues of accuracy come in, the issues of impartiality, integrity, and conflict of interest. Those are some of the principles that will apply when it comes to betting. So, from the regulator's perspective, the question would be asked: what you are advertising or what you are promoting, is it accurate? Is it true that if somebody plays this game, they can win? When it comes to the issue of conflict of interest, when you are a media house and you are running the promotion yourself, you're not advertising, and then you are having your own people, promoting. There are conflict of interest issues that might arise. So that is a concern. And I agree with what Joel is saying. When it comes to the regulation aspect of it, you are not looking at how are we going to stop, but you are looking at how are we going to enhance mechanisms that will safeguard the public. Because remember, this is not an illegal activity. It is an activity that is regulated. So the question is, are the regulations in place sufficient to protect the public?
But just maybe to add in terms of the regulation, the act that BCLB is using is a very old act. And you have talked about the issue of where it is no longer adverts, it's content.
It's content, yeah.
You find you have a presenter having a show, whether on radio or TV, for 2 hours. So that is no longer an advert, it's content. And I think that is where now, those are the gaps that BCLB and other stakeholders should be moving to be able to fill in. Because I don't think the regulation as it is now envisioned a day where it is not advert learning is a show.
It's a show. Yeah.
Now, if you go to see it today, what they have been able to cure is the issue of advertisement and how they are supposed to be handled. Now, if someone puts a whole show, so it means the station becomes like a casino, set for betting. What happens? There's no regulation that controls that. What happens if I'm a media owner, but also I'm licensed, I have a gaming company or betting company that is licensed legally by BCLB. So I have the advantage that, yes, I have the company, I'm the one running the company, but also I have the privilege of having a lot of airtime to be able to spend, unlike those others who have to pay to be able to advertise. and advertising is not cheap. This is my airtime. So if I decide today I want to spend 10 hours on gaming and betting, it is up to me. So the law had not envisioned that. Of course, there's also the obligation of, when you look at the code of conduct, there are certain things, whether the law is silent on certain things, you are still governed by the same principles. So we need to explore the gaps that exist so that we get to a place whereby there's that separation. So that if I have interest in media and I have interest in gaming, those two entities, there should be stricter regulation to avoid abuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have the suspension that will be ending in a few days or weeks. So what's the way forward from a policy aspect?
Maybe just to update, as you said, in regards to policy and the regulatory framework. As correctly put it, the programming code had express provisions when it came to betting. But for those of you who are aware, November 7th, 2024, the court found that the programming code is actually unconstitutional. And it said, it gave a stay, and it said Media Council should then develop some standards, because Media Council is the one mandated to develop, to regulate media ethical conduct. And it gave Media Council 6 months to do that. Now, within that period that was given, Media Council has then revamped the code of conduct. So there's a new code of conduct that's going to replace the old code of conduct. And that's why you had me mentioning that there's a new code of conduct that seeks to have more provisions when it comes to gaming and betting on the media. Some of the other gaps are just issues to do with enforcement, because there's the issue of classification, which determines the time within which a program should run. When a program, as Joel has said, becomes content, if, for example, we are saying we know there are channels that run gaming from morning till night. But you see, if this program is classified and that classification is enforced, you will be forced, as much as you have the airtime to do it, you will be forced to run it within a particular time. And then finally, you also talked about the issue of the policy. The council is working on a media policy for the sector. So the media policy will assist to deal with the issues, as I said, cross-cutting issues where you have several regulators dealing with one aspect in the media, how these regulators work together. So the media policy is also a document that is being developed, and we hoped maybe in the next 6 months we'll have it in place.
Okay. All right. We don't want to let you go before we get maybe reactions from audience members. Any specific questions or area of clarity?
Now, my question really goes to the policy makers. And while I was seated here, the gentleman from the Media Council, I was really at pains because I've experienced these things at first hand. The government of the day should act decisively. And for me, I started banning.
Okay.
Yeah.
We get to a point.
What really kills our people, it's not even what it's being advised. It's how they are being lured and their money being eaten. You find that somebody ametuma 200, wanasema tuma 200 mara 10 ukue the winner, and he has used 20,000, but in return hajapata. So that's why we are, as the young generation, we are supporting that the government should ban this betting in totality.
The problem is bigger than the issue of advertisements in the media. There are so many forms of gaming and betting that happen outside the media. As one of the persons said, you can walk into those two shops.
2 shops.
Yeah, in the settlements. It's not in the media, but you'll walk and go and do your betting and gaming. So banning it on, if you say you are banning the advertisement, you are not curing the problem. You're actually just putting a carpet over the problem instead of fixing the problem.
In terms of awareness, now I like what you're doing, because some of these stories, if I've not started gambling and I hear some of these stories, it will act like a deterrent. That someone, when they are buying, they are taking full responsibility. I know it is harmful and I'm making a choice. Okay. So that is the way we can be able to address this in our society.
As much as that is said, do you know, for example, even if it's a church, and that's why classification is important. If a church is running a raffle and they say, we are calling our people, we are running this raffle, the church wants to build the roof. But as we are running the raffle as a church, there's somebody who has brought a cow. Somebody will go away with a cow. Do you know that's gaming, right? And it's for a good cause. It can even be a children's home who are running a raffle. And they encourage the public, we want to do something for these children. And through this raffle, you buy a ticket. The money is going to help this children's home. But at the end of the raffle, somebody will win a motorcycle. So you see, it's a good cause. And that's why the issue of classification came in. Because there are some raffles which, based on the nature of cause they are trying to run, can actually even run during the watershed period. Okay. But there are certain kind of gaming activities that purely they will go to outside watershed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joel Karanja. Thank you, Terence Minishi. You are still part of this conversation, but those are just a perspective and insights from industry players. We take another short break, look into some of the views again from the streets of what people had to say. When I come back, I'm joined by a psychologist, but also someone who is very integral about dignity of a human being. So take this short break. We'll be right back.